The royal starship Silvara slipped through the black sky like a silver arrow. Inside its crystal halls walked Princess Irene, heir to the ocean throne of the Thalara Empire. She was tall and luminous, her skin a soft shimmer of pearl and faint blue light. Irene had visited many worlds, but she had never felt the quiet pull of curiosity as strongly as she did now. While Earth's blue oceans turned beneath her, her father, Emperor Calith, called Earth primitive. He said humans were noisy, restless, and dangerous. But Irene had read their transmissions for years. Music carried on radio waves, images hidden in data streams. She heard laughter, arguments, love songs. Something in those sounds made her heart beat faster. She wanted to know how these warm-blooded beings lived, and why their voices carried such feeling. When the ship landed in the shadow of a quiet desert, Irene stepped onto the soft ground alone. Night air touched her face. The smell of dry earth and faint flowers filled her senses. Stars burned above like scattered jewels. She had trained to stay calm in strange places, yet the air felt alive, almost welcoming. A movement stirred the silence. A human stood at the edge of the dunes holding a small lamp. He was young, dark-haired, and wore a plain jacket. His eyes widened at the sight of her, an alien princess glowing faintly in moonlight. For a long heartbeat, they simply looked at each other. "Hello?" he said, his voice uncertain but gentle. Irene tilted her head, translating the sound through her wrist device. "Hello," she answered, her own voice like a soft chord. The word felt strange on her tongue, but it carried warmth. The young man stepped closer. "Are you real?" "I am real," she replied. "I come from the stars." "I am Irene," he hesitated, then smiled. "I'm Daniel." The name settled in her mind like a quiet note of music. They stood together under the vast sky, 2 lives from worlds apart. Irene sensed no fear in him, only wonder. She asked about the lights she had seen on Earth, the cities glowing like scattered embers. Daniel spoke of people, of families and friends, of laughter around fires, of children running under the sun. His voice carried a warmth she had never heard among the cold halls of the imperial court. As they walked along the dunes, Daniel pointed to a cluster of stars. He spoke of ancient stories humans told about them, hunters, lovers, heroes. Irene listened, her heart stirring. In her world, stars were only coordinates and power sources. Here they were dreams. A cool wind brushed them. Daniel offered his jacket, and she accepted, surprised at the simple kindness. The fabric smelled of wood smoke and something she could not name. It made her feel safe. When the horizon began to pale with dawn, Irene looked back at her silent ship. She knew her father would be furious if he discovered this meeting. Yet something inside whispered that this encounter mattered more than duty. "Will you meet me again?" she asked. Daniel's smile was small but sure. "Yes, I'd like that." As the first rays of sun lit the desert, Princess Irene felt a quiet thrill. She had crossed the stars for knowledge. Instead, she had found a human heartbeat that echoed her own. The next night, the desert glowed silver beneath twin moons, Earth's moon above, and Irene's pale shiplight below. Daniel waited near the low rocks, a lantern by his feet. He had almost convinced himself that the night before had been a dream. But when a soft shimmer cut through the darkness and the princess stepped forward, he felt the truth rise like a tide. Irene's eyes caught the starlight. "You returned," she said, her voice like gentle music. "I said I would," Daniel replied. "I wanted to know if you were real or a story I'd tell myself forever." She smiled, a small curve of light. "I am real and curious." They walked across the quiet sand. Daniel spoke of his small town, how people gathered for late summer fairs, how families built houses with their own hands. Irene listened with growing wonder. In the Empire, families were chosen by bloodline councils. Bonds were duties. Love was a word in old songs. Here, Daniel described parents who stayed awake through storms, friends who argued and forgave, neighbors who cooked together when harvests failed. "Humans build ties from choice," Irene murmured. "Not command," Daniel nodded. "Sometimes it's messy, but it's ours." The princess felt a strange warmth inside. A pulse not from her royal training, but from something older, softer. They stopped at a shallow hollow where desert flowers opened to the moon. Daniel crouched and brushed a finger along a blue petal. "This one blooms only at night. My grandma used to say it waits for the world to calm down." Irene knelt beside him. Her skin glowed faintly against the petals. "It is like your people," she said. Quiet strength waiting for light. A silent pause stretched between them. She could hear his heartbeat, quick, steady, alive. Back aboard the Silvara, the princess faced another rhythm, the sharp chime of her communicator. Her attendant, Sareth, appeared as a wavering hologram. "Highness," Sareth said, bowing, "the Emperor grows restless. Your survey must be completed. He fears contamination from the humans." Irene's voice stayed calm. "I study, I learn. That is my mission." "Learning is one thing," Sareth warned. "Attachment is another." The image faded, leaving her alone in the quiet chamber. The word attachment lingered like a forbidden scent. The following evening she chose again to walk the sands. Daniel greeted her with a shy grin and a thermos of warm tea. They shared stories. She told of oceans that glowed green beneath Talara's twin suns, of ships that sang as they moved through dark space. He told of rivers hidden in canyons and children racing after fireflies. At one point he asked, "Do you ever get lonely?" "Up there?" She hesitated. "I did not know the meaning of lonely until I heard your voices through the void." Daniel's eyes softened. "Then I'm glad you heard us." A sudden desert wind swept over them, carrying the smell of rain even though no clouds marked the sky. Irene felt her chest tighten. She understood without words that she was crossing an invisible boundary, one her empire would never allow. When they parted that night, Daniel touched her hand lightly. His warmth lingered like a secret flame. Back on the Silvara, Irene stood at the observation window. Earth's horizon glimmered with lights of countless homes, each holding laughter and tears, birth and growth. For the first time she wondered if her own people, vast and proud, might have forgotten something simple and powerful. Her heart beat fast. She knew her father's command, observe, report, return. But the pull of Earth and of one human heart was stronger than any order, and somewhere deep within a question began to glow like a distant star. What if I choose for myself? Morning light spilled across the desert like soft fire. Princess Irene stood at the edge of a dry ridge, her cloak stirring in the breeze. Below her, Daniel waited with a small basket of food. The sight of him, steady, human, warm, sent a quiet tremor through her chest. They sat together on a flat stone. Daniel offered bread and sweet fruit. Irene tasted the food carefully, the flavor bright and strange on her tongue. "It is alive with the sun," she said, surprised by her own words. Daniel laughed. "That's the best review anyone's given my cooking." They ate in easy silence. Around them, the desert stretched endless in gold. Irene found herself listening to the soft rhythm of his breathing, the gentle heartbeat beneath his shirt. It felt like music she had always known but never heard. After a while, Daniel asked, "Do your people build families like we do? Parents, children, all that?" Irene hesitated. "Our unions are chosen by council. Pairs are made for reason, not feeling. Children are rare, raised by the state." Daniel frowned. "No choice, no love?" "Love is an old word," she whispered. "A memory from songs." He looked at her for a long moment, the desert wind ruffling his hair. "That sounds lonely." Irene lowered her gaze. "I did not think so. Until now." That evening, the sky above Earth burned with 1,000 stars as Irene returned to her ship. The crystal corridors of the Silvara seemed cold after the warmth of Daniel's smile. She activated the hololink. Her father's face appeared, stern, regal, his eyes bright like frozen oceans. "You delay your report," Emperor Caliph said. "Why?" "I need more time," she answered. "You have spoken with the humans," he said, voice sharp. "You will not forget your duty. They are unpredictable." "They are alive," Irene replied quietly. "Their hearts hold strength we do not understand." The Emperor's gaze hardened. "You are heir to the ocean throne. Do not lose yourself in primitive charms. Complete your survey and return." The link faded, leaving a heavy silence. Irene pressed her hands to the cold glass of the viewport. Below, Earth shone like a living jewel. She felt a pull stronger than command. The next night, she met Daniel beside a dry riverbed where tiny desert flowers glowed in moonlight. He had brought a worn book of human myths. "They're old stories," he said, flipping pages carefully. "Heroes, lovers, people who fought for their hearts." He read aloud a tale of two travelers who crossed endless seas just to be together. His voice carried a quiet strength that wrapped around her like warm cloth. When he finished, she whispered, "Why do humans risk so much for love?" Daniel looked at her, eyes gentle but sure. "Because love is life. Without it, what's the point of stars or seas? The word struck something deep inside her. A pulse of longing, sharp and bright. She reached out and touched the back of his hand. His skin was warm, his heartbeat steady beneath her fingertips. Neither spoke for a long time. The night around them seemed to breathe. Later, Irene stood alone beneath the ship's high dome. She thought of her father's command, of the Empire's cold halls, of the endless duty waiting for her, and she thought of Daniel's quiet question, the warmth of his hand. A new thought rose like dawn. What if my destiny is not only the throne? What if I can choose? Her heart answered before her mind could. I already have. The desert wind carried a promise she could not ignore. Morning light spilled across the desert like soft fire. Princess Irene stood at the edge of a dry ridge, her cloak stirring in the breeze. Below her, Daniel waited with a small basket of food. The sight of him, steady, human, warm, sent a quiet tremor through her chest. They sat together on a flat stone. Daniel offered bread and sweet fruit. Irene tasted the food carefully, the flavor bright and strange on her tongue. It is alive with the sun, she said, surprised by her own words. Daniel laughed. That's the best review anyone's given my cooking. They ate in easy silence. Around them, the desert stretched endless in gold. Irene found herself listening to the soft rhythm of his breathing, the gentle heartbeat beneath his shirt. It felt like music she had always known but never heard. After a while, Daniel asked, "Do your people build families like we do? Parents, children, all that?" Irene hesitated. "Our unions are chosen by council. Pairs are made for reason, not feeling. Children are rare, raised by the state." Daniel frowned. "No choice, no love." "Love is an old word," she whispered. "A memory from songs." He looked at her for a long moment, the desert wind ruffling his hair. "That sounds lonely." Irene lowered her gaze. "I did not think so, until now." That evening, the sky above Earth burned with 1,000 stars as Irene returned to her ship. The crystal corridors of the Silvera seemed cold after the warmth of Daniel's smile. She activated the hololink. Her father's face appeared, stern, regal, his eyes bright like frozen oceans. "You delay your report," Emperor Calith said. "Why?" "I need more time," she answered. "You have spoken with the humans," he said, voice sharp. "You will not forget your duty. They are unpredictable." "They are alive," Irene replied quietly. "Their hearts hold strength we do not understand." The Emperor's gaze hardened. "You are heir to the ocean throne. Do not lose yourself in primitive charms. Complete your survey and return." The link faded, leaving a heavy silence. Irene pressed her hands to the cold glass of the viewport. Below, Earth shone like a living jewel. She felt a pull stronger than command. The next night she met Daniel beside a dry riverbed where tiny desert flowers glowed in moonlight. He had brought a worn book of human myths. "They're old stories," he said, flipping pages carefully. "Heroes, lovers, people who fought for their hearts." He read aloud a tale of two travelers who crossed endless seas just to be together. His voice carried a quiet strength that wrapped around her like warm cloth. When he finished, she whispered, "Why do humans risk so much for love?" Daniel looked at her, eyes gentle but sure. "Because love is life. Without it, what's the point of stars or seas?" The word struck something deep inside her, a pulse of longing, sharp and bright. She reached out and touched the back of his hand. His skin was warm, his heartbeat steady beneath her fingertips. Neither spoke for a long time. The night around them seemed to breathe. Later, Irene stood alone beneath the ship's high dome. She thought of her father's command, of the Empire's cold halls, of the endless duty waiting for her, and she thought of Daniel's quiet question, the warmth of his hand. A new thought rose like dawn. What if my destiny is not only the throne? What if I can choose? Her heart answered before her mind could. I already have. The desert wind carried a promise she could not ignore. The desert night was quiet when Irene landed her silver craft in the hidden canyon. But her heart was not quiet. The warning from her father still echoed in her mind like distant thunder. She stepped out into the cool air and found Daniel waiting near a small fire. The flame painted gold on his face and threw long shadows across the sand. "I was afraid you wouldn't come," he said softly. "I could not stay away," she admitted. The truth in her voice surprised her. They sat near the fire. Daniel offered her a cup of warm tea. steam curling into the night. For a moment the world seemed safe, yet Irene felt a pulse of unease deep in her chest. Daniel noticed. "Something's wrong. My father. He knows I speak with you," she said. "He calls humans dangerous. He orders me to leave soon." Daniel's brow tightened. "Dangerous? We barely have rockets that work." "He fears what he does not understand," she replied. "But I fear something else, that he will take me away before I can learn what my heart is trying to tell me." Daniel's hand hovered near hers. "Then we hold on to every moment." High above them, far beyond the stars, the ocean throne stirred. Emperor Caliph paced the great hall of mirrored water. His advisors whispered of his daughter's delay, of unauthorized human contact. The Emperor's pride burned. He commanded a small escort fleet to Earth, to retrieve the princess before she lost her clarity of purpose. On the Silvara, alarms chimed softly in Irene's quarters as the fleet entered the solar system. Sareth, her attendant, appeared in a sharp beam of blue light. "Highness," Sareth said urgently, "your father's ships approach. You must prepare for immediate departure." Irene's pulse quickened. "Not yet. I have not finished." "Princess, you risk dishonor," Sareth warned. "They will land within one rotation." When the hologram faded, the ship seemed colder than ever. Irene pressed her forehead to the viewport. Below, the desert waited warm and alive. She felt the weight of choice heavy as gravity itself. That evening she returned to Daniel, her steps quick, heart pounding. The fire was already burning when she arrived. He looked up, reading the urgency in her eyes. "They are coming for me," she said. "My father's fleet. They will take me back maybe tonight." Daniel's breath caught. "Can we stop them?" "No, their power is too great." "But I will not go quietly." He reached for her hands. His fingers were warm and strong. "Then tell me what you need." Irene's voice trembled. "I need to know if what I feel is real. Tell me, Daniel. Do humans ever feel as if their hearts are pulled by a force stronger than stars?" He met her gaze. "Every time we love." The words settled into her like the first rain after drought. She closed her eyes, letting their warmth fill the space where fear lived. A sudden rumble shook the horizon. Far away, a faint silver gleam split the night sky. Thalara ships descending. "They are here," she whispered. Daniel stood, fists clenched. "We can hide—" "No," she said firmly. "I will face them, but I will not let them erase this." She stepped closer and placed a glowing hand over his heart. "This connection, this choice, it is mine. No council can take it." Daniel covered her hand with his own. "Then I stand with you." The ships drew nearer, their lights like cold stars falling toward the earth. The desert wind rose, carrying dust and the scent of rain. Irene felt her fear turn to a quiet strength. She was no longer just the Emperor's daughter. She was a being who had found her own reason to stand. When the first great shadow passed over the canyon, Irene looked up at the massive vessels and whispered to the night, "I choose my own path." And for the first time in her life, the choice felt stronger than any throne. End of Part 4. Would you like me to continue with Part 5, where Irene confronts the Imperial fleet and must prove that her bond with Daniel is worth defying an empire? Here's Part 4 of the 7-part HFY story. In simple, emotional English and third-person style, around 1,000 words. Part 4, The Storm Between Worlds. The desert night lay quiet. A black sea of stars above, but Irene felt no peace. Her father's warning still echoed in her mind like low thunder. She guided her small silver craft into a narrow canyon and stepped out into the cool air. Daniel was already there, waiting beside a crackling fire. The flame painted gold across his face and threw long shadows over the sand. "I was afraid you wouldn't come," he said softly. "I could not stay away," she replied, surprised by the honesty of her own voice. They sat near the fire. Daniel poured tea from a dented kettle, steam curling into the night. For a moment the world felt safe. Yet Irene's chest held a restless beat that would not quiet. Daniel watched her. "Something's wrong." "My father knows I speak with you," she admitted. "He calls humans dangerous. He orders me to leave soon." "Dangerous? We barely have rockets that work," Daniel said with a faint, uneasy laugh. "He fears what he does not understand," she answered. "But I fear something else, that he will take me away before I can understand what my heart is trying to tell me." Daniel's hand hovered near hers. "Then we hold on to every moment." Far beyond the stars, the ocean throne stirred. Emperor Caliph paced the hall of mirrors, his robe trailing like silver water. Advisors whispered of his daughter's delay, of forbidden contact with a human. Pride and worry twisted in him until he barked an order. A retrieval fleet would leave at once. On the Silvara, alarms pulsed softly when the fleet entered the solar system. Sareth, Iron's loyal attendant, appeared in a beam of blue light. "Highness," Sareth said urgently, "your father's ships approach. Prepare for immediate departure." "Not yet," Irene said, her pulse quickening. "I have not finished." "Princess, you risk dishonor," Sareth warned. "They will land within one rotation." When the hologram faded, silence filled the crystal chamber. Irene pressed her forehead to the cold viewport. Below, the desert waited, warm, alive. The weight of choice pressed down, heavy as the gravity of any world. That evening she hurried to the canyon, the sand whispering beneath her boots. Daniel stood when he saw her. "They are coming for me," she said. "My father's fleet. They will take me back, maybe tonight." Daniel's breath caught. "Can we stop them?" "No, their power is too great. But I will not go quietly." He stepped closer, his eyes steady. "Then tell me what you need." "I need to know if what I feel is real," she whispered. "Tell me, Daniel, do humans ever feel as if their hearts are pulled by a force stronger than stars?" "Every time we love," he said without hesitation. The words settled inside her like the first rain after drought. She closed her eyes and let them fill the hollow where fear lived. A deep rumble shivered through the earth. Far away, a silver gleam split the night sky. Thalara ships descending in perfect formation. "They are here," she murmured. Daniel looked up, fists clenched. "We can hide—" "No," she said firmly. "I will face them, but I will not let them erase this." She placed a glowing hand over his heart. "This connection, this choice, it is mine. No council can take it." Daniel covered her hand with his own. "Then I stand with you." The lights of the approaching fleet grew brighter, cold as falling stars. The desert wind rose, carrying dust and the sharp scent of rain. Irene felt fear twist once more, then melt into quiet strength. She was no longer just the Emperor's obedient daughter. She was someone who had discovered her own reason to stand. When the first shadow of the great ships passed over the canyon, Irene lifted her chin to the sky and whispered, "I choose my own path." And for the first time in her life, the choice felt stronger than any throne. The canyon trembled as the Imperial fleet descended. Dust spiraled upward, turning the moonlight into a pale haze. Daniel shielded his eyes while Irene stood tall, her silver cloak whipping in the wind. Above them, the Thalara ships formed a ring of cold light. A deep voice boomed from the largest vessel. "Princess Irene of the Ocean Throne, you are ordered to return to the Empire at once." Daniel felt the ground vibrate under his boots. He looked at Irene, waiting for her to move, but she stayed rooted like the desert rock. "I will speak," she called to the sky, her voice steady. "Land and face me." A spear of light shot downward. From it emerged a single craft, elegant and sharp. When its hatch opened, a tall figure stepped out, Sareth, her attendant and oldest friend. His crystal armor shone like frozen water. "Highness," Sareth said, bowing slightly, "your father demands your return. Please come with dignity. Do not let these humans cloud your judgment." Daniel stepped closer to Irene but kept silent. He felt the power in the air and knew one wrong word could bring fire from the heavens. Irene lifted her chin. "I have fulfilled my mission. I have learned more than I expected. I will not leave until I choose to." Sareth's eyes narrowed. "The Emperor fears you are compromised. The human must not—" "Daniel is not the danger," she interrupted, her voice rising like a clear bell. "It is fear that endangers us. Fear of what we might learn from each other." The wind carried her words into the night. For a long moment, Sareth said nothing. The fleet above hummed like a distant storm. Daniel finally spoke, his tone calm but firm. "She isn't your prisoner. She's a person who can decide for herself." Sareth turned to him, expression unreadable. "Human, you cannot understand our duties." "I understand choice," Daniel replied. "And it belongs to her." Irene felt her heart surge with quiet pride. She stepped forward, placing herself between Daniel and Sareth. "I have studied 100 worlds, but only here have I seen love. Something stronger than command. I will not abandon that truth." Sareth's gaze softened, almost sad. "If you defy the Emperor, you will lose the throne." "You may never return." "I know," she said. "But a throne without freedom is a cage of shining water. I will not live in a cage." Above them, the fleet shifted, engines throbbing. A new voice echoed across the desert, rich and commanding. The Emperor himself speaking through the ship's grand communicator. "My daughter," the voice thundered, "you shame your bloodline. Come home or face exile." Irene looked up at the vast sky, her eyes bright with starlight. "Father, I have found something your councils forgot. Humans choose their bonds. They risk everything for love and for family. This is strength, not weakness. I will not let fear rule me." Silence followed, deep and heavy. Even the desert wind seemed to pause. Then the Emperor spoke again, quieter but edged with steel. "You defy me?" "Yes," Irene said, her voice clear as the rising moon. "I choose my own path." The fleet lights flickered like distant lightning. Minutes stretched like hours. Daniel reached for her hand and she held it tightly, her glowing fingers woven with his. At last the Emperor's voice returned, lower, almost weary. "If you stay, you are no longer heir. You will walk among these humans as one of them. The throne will forget your name." Irene closed her eyes, feeling the weight of worlds on her shoulders. Yet beneath that weight pulsed a steadier truth, the warm heartbeat beside her. "The simple, fierce joy of choice I accept," she said. A long, slow rumble rolled across the sky as the massive ships began to rise. One by one, their lights faded into the stars until only silence and moonlight remained. Sareth lingered a moment longer. He looked at Irene, a faint shimmer of respect in his eyes. "May the currents guide you, Princess." Or simply Irene. She bowed her head. "Thank you, old friend." Without another word, Sareth returned to his craft. It lifted silently, merging with the dark. When the last echo of engines faded, the desert felt wider and strangely bright. Daniel exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "You just gave up a throne," he said softly. Irene turned to him, her pearl-lit skin glowing against the night. "I did not give up," she said. "I chose something greater than a throne." He smiled, awe and relief mixing in his eyes. "What's that?" "Freedom," she whispered. "And the chance to build something real." They stood together as the stars wheeled overhead, two hearts from different worlds, bound not by duty but by a decision freely made. Dawn crept over the desert like a slow flame. The fleet was gone. Only the wind moved through the canyons, carrying the scent of warm sand and the echo of 1,000 stars. Princess Irene, now simply Irene, stood beside Daniel and watched the sun rise. The silence felt strange, almost fragile. She touched her chest as if to steady her heartbeat. No royal guards, no chimes of command, only the sound of Daniel breathing beside her. "You're free now," Daniel said quietly. "Yes," she answered, the words soft as a sigh. "But freedom is wide. I do not know where to begin," Daniel smiled. "Then start small, one day at a time." They returned to his town just as morning light spilled across the roofs. Children were already laughing in dusty streets. People stopped and stared at the tall, glowing woman who walked beside Daniel. Some gasped, some whispered, but no one turned away. Daniel led her to a modest house with a porch wrapped in vines. "This was my grandma's place," he said. "It's quiet, safe." Inside, the walls held the faint smell of wood smoke and bread. Irene traced her fingers along a worn table. Every scratch and mark spoke of meals shared, lives lived. Her chest tightened with a feeling she had no word for, something warm, something home. "I have never seen a house that breathes," she said. Daniel laughed. "It doesn't breathe, it just remembers." In the days that followed, Irene learned the slow rhythms of earth life. She helped Daniel plant herbs in the small garden. She tasted honey straight from the comb. She watched neighbors greet each other with easy smiles and small kindnesses. A loaf of bread left at a door, a wave across a fence. Each gesture amazed her. In the Empire, people obeyed grand laws but rarely offered simple warmth. Here love lived in small acts that needed no council's approval. One evening, children gathered outside to watch the first stars appear. A little girl tugged Irene's hand. "Why do you glow?" she asked. Irene knelt smiling. "Because my people were born in oceans of light." "But your stars glow brighter to me." The child giggled and placed a flower in Irene's hair. For a moment, the world felt whole and quiet. Still, there were shadows. News of the alien visitor spread quickly. Some welcomed her. Others watched with wary eyes. A few strangers came to Daniel's door with questions too sharp to be friendly. "Are you dangerous?" one man asked bluntly. Irene met his gaze, her voice calm. Only if someone tries to take away my choice again. The man blinked, then nodded and left. Daniel squeezed her hand after the door closed. You're braver than anyone I know, he said. She looked at him, a faint shimmer of worry in her eyes. Your world is kind but uncertain. Will they accept me? They will see who you are, he said. That's enough. Late one night, Irene sat on the porch while Daniel strummed an old guitar. The sound drifted into the warm air, each note a quiet heartbeat. Your music, she whispered. It feels like the ocean currents of my world. It carries more than sound. It carries soul. Daniel smiled without looking up. That's what we play for, to share what words can't hold. She closed her eyes and let the melody wash through her. In that moment she felt something powerful and gentle, belonging. Not because of bloodline or throne, but because of choice, of shared silence, of music under the same stars. But Irene knew her journey wasn't only personal. Messages from the Thal-Ara border flickered across the skies, her father's empire sending probes, cautious but curious. She sensed that her defiance had begun to ripple through distant halls of power. One evening, a faint holographic signal appeared in the garden. Sareth's image flickered, his face thoughtful. Irene, he said softly. The Emperor watches but does not act. He waits to see what you will become. Many of our young whisper your name. They wonder if there is more than duty. Tell them there is, she replied. Tell them choice is not weakness. Tell them love is strength. Sareth bowed his head. Perhaps you teach us all. Then the signal faded like mist. That night, Daniel found her gazing at the stars. Do you miss it? He asked. Your world? I miss the sea of my birth, she admitted. But I do not miss the cage. Here the sky is wide and the air is full of songs. Here I am more myself than ever before. Daniel touched her hand. I'm glad you stayed. Irene looked at him, her eyes bright with quiet certainty. I did not only stay, she said. I began. As the moon climbed higher, the town lights flickered like tiny galaxies. Irene felt the vastness of space and the small beating warmth of Earth. For the first time, those two truths did not fight inside her. They became one. She leaned against Daniel's shoulder, listening to the soft hum of his heart. Somewhere in that sound lay the promise of a future they would build. Slow, fragile, and real. Above them the stars burned on, silent witnesses to a choice that had changed two worlds. The first chill of autumn touched the air when Irene woke before sunrise. The garden lay under a silver mist, each leaf beaded with quiet dew. She stepped outside barefoot, feeling the cool earth against her skin. It had been 6 months since the night she chose freedom. 6 months of small discoveries. Bread warm from the oven, the smell of rain on dust, the laughter of children chasing fireflies. Each day on Earth had stitched itself into her heart until she could no longer imagine life without the hum of this world. Yet today felt different. A low vibration trembled through the soil, faint but familiar. A distant memory of star engines stirred in her bones. Daniel joined her on the porch, rubbing sleep from his eyes. You feel it too, he said. Irene nodded. A ship approaches. From my people. They stood in silence as the pale sky brightened. A streak of light cut across the heavens, not a falling star but a vessel entering the upper atmosphere. It glowed for a moment and then settled beyond the western hills. They found me, she whispered. Do you want to meet them? Daniel asked. His voice held no fear, only gentle steadiness. I must, she said. Running forever is not living. They must know why I stayed. By midday, a sleek silver craft rested on the flat sands outside town. Its surface shimmered like water. A small crowd gathered at a respectful distance. From the ship descended Sareth, her old friend, his blue-white cloak stirring in the warm wind. Behind him came a single envoy, tall and silent, carrying the royal crest. Irene of the Tideblood, Sareth said, bowing slightly. The Emperor sends peace. He wishes only to hear your voice. The envoy extended a crystal device. A soft light bloomed, shaping into a tall figure, her father's image. His eyes, once cold as starlight, seemed almost human now. My daughter, the Emperor said, reports tell me you have lived among these humans. Tell me why you have chosen them over the Empire. Irene drew a breath. Every moment of her new life rushed through her. Daniel's laughter, the kindness of neighbors, the taste of honey, the music that carried soul instead of command. Father, she said, her voice clear, I have found something your empire cannot measure. These humans love not for power or bloodline. They love because their hearts tell them to. They build families, not empires. I have learned that strength is not in ruling, but in caring. I cannot return to a throne that demands silence where there should be song. The emperor's image flickered. For a long moment, only the desert wind spoke. You defy tradition, he said at last. Yet I see no fear in you. Perhaps our ways are not the only ways. The stars are wide. Live as you will, child of mine. The light dissolved, leaving only the soft hum of the crystal. Sereth stepped closer. Your words will travel farther than you know. Others will wonder if freedom can be chosen. Perhaps change has already begun. Irene touched his arm. Carry that hope home. Tell them our people are strong enough to learn. He bowed, a faint smile on his face. May the tides guide you, Irene of two worlds. Then he and the envoy returned to the ship. With a low thunder, it rose and vanished into the blue. The crowd slowly dispersed, murmuring in awe. Daniel walked to her side, his hand warm in hers. You were incredible, he said. I only spoke the truth, she replied. Yet her heart pounded with something more than relief. A bright, fierce joy. Does this mean you're staying for good? He asked softly. She turned to him, eyes glowing like dawn on water. I never left. My home is here with you. Weeks passed. The seasons shifted. Irene helped rebuild a community hall damaged in a summer storm. She shared stories of distant nebulae with children who listened wide-eyed. Farmers asked her about alien soil techniques. Musicians asked her to sing the harmonies of the Thalara seas. Slowly, fear melted into familiarity. She was no longer the stranger from the stars. She was a neighbor, a friend, a quiet part of the town's heartbeat. One crisp evening, Daniel led her to the edge of the desert where wildflowers caught the moonlight. He carried no grand speech, only a small wooden ring he had carved himself. I don't know what vows look like among the stars, he said, but on Earth, this means I choose you, not as a cage, just as my life. Irene felt tears warm her eyes. She took the ring and held it to the moonlight. Then I choose you too, not as a throne, as my freedom. They stood together under the endless sky, the earth below and the universe above, bound by something greater than any empire, a love freely chosen. As winter's first snow began to fall, Irene watched flakes melt on her palms. Each one was a tiny universe, unique and brief. She thought of her father's distant empire and the countless stars still waiting. Change would come slowly, but it would come. She looked at Daniel, who was laughing as snow landed in his hair. Do you ever wonder, she asked, if the stars are watching us? He grinned. Let them watch. We've got work to do here. And in that simple answer, Irene felt the truth of everything she had learned. The future is not written in the cold light of distant suns, but in the warm, living hearts of those who dare to choose love over fear. The snow kept falling, quiet as a blessing. Two worlds had met. Two hearts had spoken. And beneath a sky of endless stars, a new story of both species began. One of freedom, hope, and the gentle power of love.